Hi, everyone, and welcome back to your weekly installment of the Reserve List Top 10. These are the hottest selling cards on the Reserve List this week from January 4th till the 11th of 2025. And in this week's video, we are doing a deep dive look into what's been happening and why we are seeing this surge in the singles market for Reserve List cards. You're back, and so am I. I'm the host, MTG Moxman, and you've got to put up with me for between 10 and 15 minutes. So get seated, get ready, and let's kick back and relax together as we take a look at the Reserve List Top 10. A reminder, if you enjoyed today's content, I can do the whole yada yada, and then remember to subscribe to the channel, yada yada, my TCG player affiliate link. Yeah, that's my reference to Seinfeld. Let's dive into number 10. Now, number 10 this week is Demonic Hordes from Revised Edition. I did mention this card this week in the video, and of course, I guess some sales happened because of that. Not a massive amount, but still 50 sales this week, totaling $327 of total sales action, with an average price of $6.54. This is a very dirt cheap reserve list card, and it does have some fun uses and ways of breaking it. Not to mention, Agatha's Soul Cauldron, that was such a cool combination card. I didn't even think of that. To the person in the comment section who mentioned that, that was epic. It blew my mind for a good portion of my day. I'm an old man Magic player. Ideas like this sometimes slip by. Way to go. Now, the market for this card does show that it's been around the $30-$40 mark in the buyouts of 2021. It's never recovered to those levels again, and it would take tens of thousands of copies to make it go back there. Now, the number 9 card this week has a lot more purpose than a lot of players realize, and that is Fork from Revised Edition. This card has been as high as $150. It costs 1/5 what it used to cost, and that has players looking at it time and time again. At 52 sales this week and an average price of $35.99, total sales volume of $1,800, you can see why players are looking for the near mint copies. Copies like Fork, the card itself, the ability to copy a spell and choose new targets and do crazy things, even countering counter spells and all kinds of fun things. When you look at a card like this and the different variants and variations that Wizards has created over the years, Fork is still the best. It still stands alone. It's the high cheese, and it's really cheap, which has players always kind of adding them to commander decks, which means you get these little sales surges like we're seeing right now, but we're also seeing that these don't get released back into the wild, which means players hold on to them for very long periods of time. They get added into collections, and they just don't really resurface that much. Now, for our next card, oh boy, here we are talking about Mox Diamond again. Now, this thing is on everyone's wish list. People are hitting it up, and it ties Fork for the amount of sales, but I put it higher in the postings just because of the price tag. So, at number 8 with 52 sales, the same as Fork, $629 being the average price, that's $32,000 of sales action for just a few copies. Insane to think, right? Now, Mox Diamond being from Stronghold and being utilized in any commander deck because it is just a generic card that can go everywhere and be playable. Players always seek this card out. For a long time, we had players looking for those heavily played copies. They were just, content to get one for the $300 to $500 range. But now that we're seeing this thing back almost to its original high price levels, this reminds players that cards like this, the longevity and playability of the card is going to generate the interest, and the interest will carry through. Now, it's not as high as the $900 it used to be, but at the same time, it's not far off there, is it? It's around $840 Canadian. Keep an eye on this card. It will go over 1,000, and players know it, and that's why they're buying it and buying it now while it's still below that level. Now, for our next card, we're diving over to Alliances, and this is Lake of the Dead. Now, cards like this have an eternal interest level because of the fact they could do some crazy stuff that other new Magic cards just can't do. They haven't been duplicated. Add in some iconic artwork and the fact this set hasn't been around for 30 years. And a card like Lake of the Dead with Eldrazi and big pumpers like this means it's going to have a lot of interest. I've also even seen this thing in a green-black deck with some big stompy beasties. So never underestimate the value of cards like this. When you look at new mana-based cards, they're never as good as the originals. And this being like an OG that's not even a legendary land, by the way. But yes, of course, in Commander, it's a one-of. But beside the point, an epic card that's been as high as the $300 level, this is 1/3 the price it used to be. And I don't see it settling down anytime soon. We have renewed interest in purchasing cards like this. I think there's some speculation going on from what I've seen. So keep your eye out. Enjoy the card if you own it. Now, for the next card, we're diving into the City of Solitude from Visions with an average price of $11.83 per copy. 56 copies this week. It's only 660 bucks total sales action. Now, cards like this, though, being enchantments, they're kind of brutal because it says each player may play spells and abilities only during his or her turn. This can be one of those cards when people see it, they immediately will jump to you being the threat. It's an immediate jump. They're like, this card is stopping me from interacting with you on other turns. I can't have that happen, so I just got to get rid of it. And people will go after you for it. The fact this can be splashed into a lot of different colored decks means players do utilize it quite often, and its low price tag isn't really attracting any speculation. There's no surge in the interest, but there's a continued interest, which kind of keeps it going along, but no price spike, which is nice, guys. You can get this card really cheap, like $7, $8 on TCG Player. Now, Mind Over Matter is a different kind of beast all to itself. Average price, $40.40. It keeps rising. This thing, again, is one of those cards with so many infinite combos that this one is one of those cards that you might see in the future. I'm not going to say banned, but people will know as soon as you play with it what you're going to do. This card probably should be around the $200 level, but it's not. And that's good for any player who wants to get their hands on it. I can see this card over the next decade slowly gaining momentum and a lot of playability to it, so it's just going to keep being bought up. And as the copies get bought, players add to their collection. And they see, the thing about players right now is they're purchasing cards because it's so much cheaper to buy some of these cards than it used to be. And the playability factor is kind of like eternal. You have it forever. And new cards always get reprinted, and players hate that. So here we go. Let's check out the next one. Thawing Glaciers from Alliances. Now, this is because of Mossborn Hydra. I have lots of friends who are building with this stuff into all kinds of crazy landfall commander decks. And the fact that we have Thawing Glacier less than 50 bucks, you're going to keep seeing the sales on this card continue. And there's a lot of speculation driving into this one. $18.80, 86 sales, $1,616. It's still really cheap, okay? There's also the DCI promo version. Thanks a lot for that awesome picture, David. Epic, made my day. When we see these things and where these cards can go and where they've been, you always have to kind of go back to the basics and say, is it going to go up now or go up later? Now, if it's not going up now, picking up one or two copies that they're really cheap can really help you out in the long run. In case it spikes later, you can cash some of those in and cash in some chips there for some future value. I like to do that myself from time to time. And a card like this, to me, being below the $50 mark means it's probably a buy if I can get a good deal on it. Now, for our next card, yeah, Soldevi Excavations from Alliances. Now, I'll be honest, I am most of the purchases in this one because I bought some for the Mox Man's birthday, and I picked up some of my monthly ones at the end from some live stream stuff I said I would do. So before you knew it, I'm a big chunk of what we see on this week's sales, but I know that they did them. So 96 sales this week, which is $1,055 of total sales action. And of course, the epic artwork that is Soldevi Excavations comes into play. It can tap for 2 mana after you sacrifice an island or you got to bury it. And of course, it can scry. This card is not a game-ending card, but it's not nearly as bad as people used to believe. I love the Soldevi. I'm always into the market manipulation on this card to see how it interacts in the long-term overall health of a card stock and how many are available to the players. It's not as good as people think, but we can get to that in another video. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next card, which is going to be Jester's Cap. Again, from Ice Age. This thing refuses to leave my top 10. People keep buying it. And this week, it's 146 sales to take the number 2 spot, which means it's not number 1. There is a card that sold more copies than this. That's only $697. And yes, this card went up like a little tiny bit. There's been enough sales now, enough pressure on the card that it's actually starting to rise in value. Does that mean it's going to be worth more? No. You're going to have to use this card in combination in commander decks. And again, generic. It can go anywhere. Let's not forget the benefits of generic artifacts. And if you have recursion of any type, if you're getting things like the Amulet of Vigor and stuff in there to really, tee off on stuff, if you have ways of bringing it back, you can use this multiple times in one turn. Never ignore the fact it's less than $5 and it can win you the game. Win cons with one card, less than $5? Yeah, thank you. I will look at that card all the day. Now, the last card. We got Palinchron. This is, of course, from Urza's Legacy. This has infinite mana combos that can do all kinds of crazy stuff. Now, this card comes in this week with 156 sales. This is a buyout, people. $5,254.08. Now, we remember this card being like the, $100 card that it was. Nowadays, you could buy for 20 bucks, and the Palinchron does have ways of doing infinite combo loop things. Now, this thing is one of those unique ones from the Urza block, right? When this thing comes into play, you untap 7 lands. But when you use this with Hullbreaker, and you unsummon it for the 4, and you get the 2 extra mana, and you keep recursion, keep doing it over and over and over and over and over again, before you know it, you have infinite mana to do whatever you want with, and it's all because of the Hullbreaker Horde. That's just one combo. There are others you can use to make this happen, but the idea of the Hullbreaker being a $1 or $2 card, putting this together in a blue commander deck, you can see where things would go, and you will have a blast playing with cards like this. I love it. Most people forget just how big the reserve list market is. Yeah, it's 572 cards. That's all there is. But the reasons why people do and don't do things is a much bigger conversation. Right now, there'll be a group of players who are really happy that there's been no catalyst to cause reserve list prices to surge like they did in 2021. They can take advantage of lower card prices, pick up the cards they've always wanted, and kind of come out ahead. Also, speculators are super happy because they can get the cards so cheap, and they can wait for a rain day when the market turns itself around and we get that FOMO event. There's lots of reasons why players are going to do certain things. But what I've noticed is this now continued thrum of sales, just a beating of a drum, nice steady pace. The cards are ebbing and flowing with the market as it stands, which means this is the real market we're in right now. The prices we're seeing, as low as they are, this is what the market is willing to accept right now. It gets players happy. They can pick up cards they want to have, and they don't feel bad about paying that price for the most part. No, we're not talking about Power 9 cards, we're not talking insane levels, but all those mid-level reserve list cards that players have always wanted. Purchase now, sell now, whatever you want to say. The market is buying and selling at a very even pace. You know, when you look at the investment strategies that players are going to use to come out ahead in the long term, it's never a here and now, I need to flip this card right away. Players who are in this for the long haul can wait 20, 30 years. They can pray for the day that a market turns itself around. But up until that event happens, other players, regular Joes, are going to get in there and get the cards they want. They're going to think about the new constructed idea, a new crazy combination. But the players who are in the know, the players who've been around a long time, will be buying some of these cards as the prices go down and start collecting on the falling knife. Not only because they could turn themselves around, but also because these might be cards that they're actually trying to get their hands on. And you can't really forget about the collectors. Not everyone's an investor trying to make money. Some people just like to have a lot of a card to say, how many of 1923 pennies can I get? How many 1924s can I get? Some people do that with Magic cards. How many Plague Rats from Revised can I get? How many Unlimited Plague Rats can I get? The same can be said for any reserve list card that is cheap, plentiful, and at a price point a player is willing to dive in on. I've seen this dozens and dozens of times over the last several years, and I don't think that's going away. Because there's always that chance new reserve list dollars enter the market when a new player finds a reserve list card or a new crazy combination comes along, puts the lens on that card, and we see a lot of sales. We see a lot of eventful happenings for a little while, then everything dies down, and that market trends down. Just like we saw with the Deranged Hermit this year. If you bought it at 16 and you sold it 60, 70 bucks, you made a lot of money, right? But ever since then, the market's trending down. Players are going to remember that. Even if it's only a small segment, that small segment of players will pick up that card when it gets that $20 level, buy one or two, and start building up for the next time that squirrels come around. Squirrel! Before these things happen. You can't forget about it. Your past is your present. It's also your future. It's all interconnected in markets like this because it's a collectible hobby. It's what you're willing to pay. And when there's a FOMO event, you're willing to pay more because you don't want to miss out. And when everything's calm and there's nothing going on and everyone's lining up perfectly to go to the hot dog stand, there's no rush because we're not running out of hot dogs, guess what? The price stays the same. There's no fear of it running out. It's the way it is. So thanks again for stopping by the video today. I hope you had a good time while you were here. Drop some comments in the comment section. And of course, I'll see you guys at the live stream tonight, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. Have a great one, everyone. Welcome back to the end of the video. I know we're here at the end. What you're seeing right now is, of course, all the amazing patrons of my channel, because without that support, well, we wouldn't be doing daily uploaded content, would we? We also have our YouTube membership members here proudly represented. And of course, the patrons, guys. Without you, I mean, where would we be right now? I'd be in line at the hot dog stand hoping I could afford a hot dog. See you guys tomorrow. Well. You've made it to the end of the video. Thanks for stopping by. This is the Ramble and the Chamble. That's right. I have coffee in hand. We're ready to have this little short-ended conversation about cleaning your driveway and doing it properly. So if you want to clean your driveway in the winter, you have snow piling up, you don't have a snowblower, or you just want to get a good workout, you go to the middle of the driveway. You put a line right down the middle. You shovel that line all the way down. Then you can just go back and forth side to side, or do one whole side, then the other whole side. But you don't shovel it all, you just push it up, getting it wider and wider. Then you just do the last little shovel. That way you're not hurting your back. Always lift with your knees, and always make sure you have a mini Mox doing some slave labor out there with the promise of some hot cocoa and some marshmallows at the end. You got to be a team player. You got to make sure things happen. And if they don't happen, or they're not doing the job good enough, well, there's something called, well, anyway, you shove your kid's face in the snow, you rub it around, and you remember the 80s fondly and say, yep, it happened to me, and I'm going to do it to you. What? I can take enjoyment out of the little things in life. So can you. Now you get to relive this for the whole day and say he gave his kid a snow job. Nah. Even shove some down the jacket. I'll see you guys later.